Yeah, I mean, listen, dude, listen, man, this is not the work, this is not the same work show that we, went through together. This is my podcast. It is very, very laid back, you know, no placate, no perpetrating, just keep it one thou wow, if you will.
Is that Lake Merritt?
That is late merit, man. I like to, it's a good backdrop. I think it goes good with my skin.
I see
And
you
I
got it
always,
at the Twilight Hour too. You must have interviewed like a beautiful young lady on the last episode or something. I need the dawn photo of Lake Merritt and just with no homeless tents, please. Thank you.
have you been back to Oakland recently?
I was actually up this past weekend,
Yeah.
going up again next weekend. My daughter is with her grandparents, and
Oh, so you got the house to yourself.
I do for a hot second.
Wow.
You
Okay.
know what's funny too, man, is how domesticated I am. Was like, last night I'm like, yeah, man, staying up late, finna eat chips in the bed. And nobody's gonna tell me what to do. Like getting up early to the screams, the baby screams, knocked out like 10:01 p.m.
Hey, honestly,
Wide
man.
awake, 5 a.m. Dog took the dog out. She's looking around like, I don't know what to do,
So horrible intros I do. This is Al Harris. This is the homie. I worked with him for a brief moment and he decided to leave me. But we're gonna get into your story in a little bit. But just back to what you were just saying, I went back home for the first time in a couple of years, actually, a few weeks
Wow.
ago, and I took time off of work for the first time almost in ever as well. And I hadn't been home in a while, yet people aren't like my mom and dad weren't available. They were like working.
Mhm.
My sisters had
Mhm.
like soccer practice, and my
Yeah.
grandma had errands to run still, and I was just like left at the house not to do anything. And there were a couple of days where I really just stayed in bed and just watched, shows on Netflix. And I gotta tell you, that's the life, bro.
That's the life,
Like
man.
having no responsibilities, literally, even if I wanted to do something, there was nothing I could do.
Yeah, 100% that's the life. I feel like I got to live that life extended
Mm,
while I was still playing ball.
right.
And I think even then, I said I appreciated it and I tried to be in the moment and be like, man, it's so nice to have the day to myself. It was a little different because you're on the other side of the globe from your people.
Right.
But there's no question that like the ability to nap daily if you choose to, and the ability to be in your bed midday, and the ability to just like, do things like that.
Well,
Slept
that's
on.
that that's the part
It's
that,
rare.
that that's the part about college that these kids aren't going to understand, that they're never going to get that opportunity again. Like there were just days where it was honestly just fiscally more responsible to take a nap than to go, like it's
The only thing that could happen if I get out of this bed is money could get spent. That's
money's
the
going to
only
get
thing that could
spent.
happen.
And that was the only time in history, and well, now they're going to be paying college athletes, but that was the only time in history where, we were all just collectively broke together. That I remember, I had a sociology teacher say, if you don't find your significant other in college, your chances of finding the right one drop greatly, just because you never in a time you're going to meet somebody where you're both broke together. You know what I'm saying? You guys are both in the same spaces, in the same interests, and you have all this time to, outside of class and practice or whatever, what have you, not your jobs, you have time to spend with each other. So I didn't find the one, so I'll be single for the rest of my life.
Well, I was gonna say, I'm also super curious. Like, I would love to ask your sociology teacher, like, who hurt you? Like, why are you saying this? Why would you say this to children who came to get an education and better their lot? Why would you say that? Like, why are we leading with this, Mr. Sociology Professor or Mrs.? Like, why?
The classroom had
Yeah.
800 kids in it. The classroom was bigger than my actual high school in its entirety. And I just remember there was probably like a 2 or 3 week sprint after that, like that lecture, where people were just going on crazy ass dates. And
The founder of Tinder was in that class. Like, history was changed.
we
that
got to
day.
get on
Like,
this.
yo, I need to automate this. Like, somebody was in there taking that to heart. Like, we have to get on the most amount of dates now as
Oh,
possible.
that's hilarious, bro. That's so funny.
That's
So
wild.
So the Al Harris story, man. I worked with you at this company called Procore back in Santa Barbara, but like maybe 2 years ago, we were working together. But when I found out you were from the Bay, most people, when they say they're from the Bay, it's usually like, Antioch or something like Pittsburgh or just something way out in the outskirts, you know what I'm saying? But you was actually from the town, from Alameda. I knew that area very well growing up. And that's when we started kind of rapping a little bit. And sorry for my Caucasian audience members, rapping is like we started talking to each other, started conversing. I forget, I have to cross over. But Al, where's the Al
for
Harris?
y'all, don't feel bad. Like I literally had to message Ox before the start of this podcast to say, hey, look, are we in Oakland or are we on the business professional setting? So like we're consciously choosing to use this vernacular.
Well, we don't often get to.
Yeah, exactly. This is our safe space. That's
this is my safe space that we're sharing with all of you. So where does
the subtitles to at the bottom, just like rapping, spitting, jug.
My favorite is like, for example, Marshawn Lynch had the interviews, and I just remember people complaining about the most recent public one where he was talking about counting your chickens and making sure you save up your money. And it's like, what I love about him is he's able to use these words, and it's like, don't be such a hardhead. Like, what he's talking about. Stop with the why is he talk like that? Why is he being so ghetto or whatever? Or why can't he just, it's like he can, but if you think about it, he's being himself, and he's speaking in a way that you understand what he's saying.
Yeah. And on top of that, it's like the same thing, like when I'm at a bar and Journey comes on and like a bunch of people jump on a table, kick their glasses over, and the bartender doesn't say anything. And I'm like, this is acceptable behavior. It's like in certain circumstances, that this moment speaks to you and your people, and you're forgiven for not going through the normal protocol of how to act. We have the same thing in our culture. Like
is Journey their step in the name of love?
I think so.
Which unfortunately, fuck man, this R. Kelly let us down, man.
Oh man, we could spend another hour on Kells. I've never seen somebody be like so critical to the culture and so heroic, and then also like you could get away with playing one R. Kelly track at like a church event. That's what I mean, right? And then lo and behold,
I mean, Cosby. Honestly, like I don't have any more heroes because I'm just at this point waiting for them to go down for something.
I feel like we're gonna read about like Mother Teresa was like, slinging weed packs and back then. Like they're just tearing down all our heroes.
You didn't hear about Harriet Tubman?
All of our heroes.
You didn't hear about Harriet Tubman?
I didn't hear.
Oh man, bro, she's getting canceled. She's getting canceled.
They canceled Harriet?
Yeah, she, colorism. She used to leave the lighter skinned slaves.
Yo, I feel like I don't even know what this podcast is going to be on, but we just got kicked off. We just got canceled. Yo,
all right.
I'll never get a job again. This is great. Thanks, Love it when we get together on recording.
It's all right. We already IPO'd, so I got my little coins.
All 12 of my cents. We did great.
So listen, where does the Al Harris story start for you? And I'm gonna do my best. I just said I'm gonna do the best to everybody listening to keep this to like 45 minutes. We'll see.
Oh yeah, good luck. So a great question, man. The Al Harris story starts when Angela Eloise Curry and Anthony Harris got together in Chicago one night and got a crime. No. I guess I would start with my earliest memories, which were of me, son of a Chicago native, and my mother from the Midwest, sitting in front of a TV, watching Michael Jordan like light up a screen, literally light up a screen. So that's probably like age 3, 4. For a quick minute, I lived in Santa Rosa, California, way up north. And then at age 6, moved to Alameda, right behind the Oakland airport is a suburb that prior to entering the island of Alameda is still Alameda City District.
Right.
And I say that because, like, from my birthplace, from my earliest memories, I was introduced to the fact that if I come out of my house and make a right, life is tremendously different than if I come out of my house, make a left, and go over a bridge.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part of me and my life and my story, is just being very aware of like the good fortune I had, the opportunities I had, and very clear examples of what could go wrong really early on. So it all started back then.
And I think you and I related really well because I think I had a similar experience where my dad had a house up in the Oakland Hills, and then I ended up moving to Piedmont, and then my mom lives in East Oakland. So I literally was like every other week.
Same exact.
You know, I was getting to see both, and you know, my mom raising me and my brother on her own, and then my dad, you know, the rich doctor. Those two stereotypes. And whoever said money can't buy you happiness was like on crack. because it was definitely a lot cakier. It was definitely a lot cakier every other week, you know, because you know,
whoever said that has never not had money or has always had too much. I don't know.
I mean, look, both my mom bust their ass. Both my mom and my dad both bust their ass and did the best that they could to provide a good life for me, and they did. But you know, there's some times where me and my brother are scrounging in the house looking for coins in the couch to see if we can buy a slice of pizza or something like that to share. At times, and then there's, you know, my dad's house it was completely different. So so that balance is like definitely what helped form me as well.
Hearing you say that, like, I won't go into too much detail because I didn't get prior consent to share his story, but my old man was born south side of Chicago in a very questionable time. We're talking, you know, mid 50s, 60s, 70s. Right. South side was still South side. And, you know, he started out at extremely humble beginnings, let's put it that way. And through his own effort, education, et cetera, he's now doing very well for himself. And one of my favorite things that he says to people like around this topic is, you know, I've been dirt poor, absolutely no money in my pocket, and I have a little money. Having money's better. Like, I don't know what else to tell you.
It's
like,
just so much easier.
Is better. I don't know how else to put it. You know, it's not to say you won't have any problems ever. No one's saying that.
Right.
But if you have the two options, this one's a little better. So.
Yeah, I will take tax evasion issues over. Like, I'll take rich people problems. Yeah, I can handle this because this shit over here, once you're in a hole, like I mean, the hole just keeps getting deeper and deeper and worse and worse. And I
totally get the theory though. Let me like not come off super jaded to your community. Like, I totally understand what people mean, because you will still have problems. Like, if you have money and if you have a place to stay, like, life will not go rosy. Like, we all need to accept that much. But, you know, walking into a hospital with a loved one and they need an operation, and you being able to pull out a card and pay for it versus you not even having that choice. Like, in certain situations, it's just clearly evident the way our society is created.
Sure.
It is helpful to have money. That's all we're trying to say.
And I think we'll get to this part, but one of the things that was always hard for me growing up, I mean, I know this is about you, and so I'm going to lead into this part where I hope you could take it off. But one of the hard things for me growing up was, you know, I went to Piedmont High School, which is obviously like nationally known as one of the really best academic schools. Whereas the kids that I grew up with in some of the other parts, they didn't get that same opportunity. And so I would like to think I'm a loyal person, and I, you know, it's just, as time goes on, it's just harder and harder to keep those people easily in your life. Any little things like, you know, going to restaurants now, you know, you kind of had to be cautious about who in your friend group is there, because, you know, they may not be able to fit the bill, or it may not be comfortable for them. Whereas it's like, now I'm at a place where, you know, I'm not really worried about which item I'm ordering off the menu.
Yeah, man, there's a lot of directions to go with that. One thing I'll say is that, you know, applaud you, number one, right, for just being conscious of that fact. Like, I think the key is, as we go through different points in our careers, lives, livelihoods, et cetera, like, as you reach different levels, just acknowledging that, like, everybody's not where you're at, for better or for worse, right? Like, everybody's in a different situation. And I think where we get into trouble as a society is when people have been in this level for so long that they don't remember what it was like to be here,
Right.
or they don't care what it's like to be here, or they're not even willing to acknowledge that people can be here through no fault of their own, right?
Right.
Like I think for a lot of folks, it's like I'm successful because I work hard, and that's that end of story, right? But
Right.
what about the person that works hard and is, missing a leg? Or what about the person that works
Right.
hard and has a mental handicap? What about,
Yeah.
like they didn't choose those things. What about the person that works hard, but they're in the middle of the Congo? And so working hard there is like success there looks like this level to someone who grew up in a Western society, right? Like they're both working equally hard, but their ceilings are different in some regards. So I guess I'm just saying that to say, like, you already have done at least the one step that's essential, and not forgetting that as you've climbed and rose in your career.
Right.
So that's really commendable. And then on top of that, like, that's where you could see like the paper chase, if you will, like the hustle, the grind, being a real positive, right? Because for me, it was always like, I want to reach a certain level of wealth that like everybody can come with me, and I don't even, the bill's paid while we're talking mess, no one notices, and we just dip. Like, I always thought that was like the most admirable thing ever. Like,
right.
I want to work so hard, like I'm good, my family's good.
Yeah.
But then also all these people that in some way, shape, or form played a role in my life success, growth, took a second to, come and coach a basketball practice with a bunch of scrawny kids that weren't theirs, but they had a free Saturday and did that. Like, I wish I was successful enough so that none of them had any worries too.
Right.
And in that mindset, the pursuit of, capital and success and financial reward is good, because I know what the cause is,
right.
or what the desire to do with it is.
So what was your game plan when you were coming up? We skipped over obviously a bunch, but speaking to your work ethic, you have one of the strongest work ethics I've ever come across, and you show up on time. No, you show up earlier than everybody else. You work your butt off it, and and those are things that I was explaining to someone recently. Those are things that you don't find in common in people. You say you do what you say you're going to do, and you put in that work. If something's not just something doesn't come to you well, you figure it out how to do it. And I think a lot of people but you have one of the strongest work ethics. Like, where does that come from, and what was your game plan starting out in life?
Man, I really appreciate you saying that. I might ask for a copy of this recording to send to my boss and my board. So thank you. You heard that he's, strongest work ethics. No, on a serious note, so I think that's a two-part answer. Number one, just in terms of like being a man of your word, that was always admirable to me, and probably out of like necessity of like, just like, those little slogans of like, never owe anybody money, and like, never, don't lie to people, and don't owe anybody favors you can't repay.
Yeah.
When you're growing up like on the edge of Oakland in the mid-90s, it's like, I literally understand why you're telling me that. Like, don't owe this guy money, right? And I don't know how detailed we want to get, but most of the time that you and I spent growing up in Oakland, East Bay, Alameda, Oakland was the murder capital of the country. It's not a big city, you know what I mean, to be the murder capital of every year. So much so to like, when we came in second, we cheered. It was like,
I remember we came in second.
Like, oh, finally 1 year. Woo, pressure's off, right?
Fuck, I forgot. It was like back-to-back champs. It was crazy.
So, needless to say, I've seen a lot of fights. I've seen, some violent situations just being a young kid out and about. And I think, like, at least for me, like, survival and my safety were probably like at the genesis, like, let me just be a good dude. Let me just like not like do something to somebody that where they see me at an event, they want to hurt me. Like, that just general survival was like, it's important to be a good dude and to honor your work. And then work ethic wise, I think it was also very apparent that like, hey man, there's people here, 30, 40, 50, 60 years old, like really struggling to get by and to pull themselves up by the bootstraps. So like, it's not enough to like have good intentions. It's not enough to like be smart. Even it's not enough just to work hard, but at least I have full control over those things. Like, I can work my butt off, and try. I can never give up. And then at least that's always in my control, because we all know in life there's so much that's not in your control.
Mm-hmm.
So I always was able to accept all the things that weren't in my control by literally making sure I had 100% of these.
Mm-hmm.
And, for somebody that, my goal from a child was to be a professional athlete, to be in the NBA, to make enough money to take care of all my people from a game of basketball that I love to play.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're pursuing a game or a position or, an accomplishment that like 0.1% of the world achieves, you better be knocking out the 100% of things that you can't control, because you probably still ain't gonna be 7-1 or so.
Yeah, you can't just sit upside down and hope you grow. Yeah, you got to deal with what you got.
That was it. That was it. And the commonplace of all my heroes, the Magic Johnsons, the Larry Birds, the Michael Jordans, all of them was like their work ethic was insane. The Kobe's, it's just like that was like, it's not even a question. Like if you even want to be in this realm within the sport, you had to have that. And I think thankfully, I realized it's kind of true with everything I do. Like you just got to put in that much effort to have the goals, that the success you want to have.
So you played at St. Joe's, correct?
I did, yeah.
And you were decent. I
was all right. I was actually, depending on who you ask what year, I was actually garbage. Like, so let me tell you a quick. Basketball was like, grew up playing like junior high in Alameda, public school. Then I went to St. Joe's for junior high and high school. And so in Alameda, which is like an island off the coast of Oakland, you can't get to without going through Oakland. I could be any, like, I don't think I ever lost a game once, pickup, playing at the park for a couple of dollars.
Yeah.
Like city league, youth league, like if I wasn't unbeatable, it was just like a real shocker when I took an L,
Yeah.
So I feel like I was already like really, really good, really young.
Yeah.
And then start coming out the house, turn to right. Dropped it off in like, EOIDC, Tassa Faranga, Rainbow Rec Seminary.
I remember Rainbow Rec.
This is where I'm getting dropped off. Like, we'll come get you in a couple of hours. So I'm like, and then having to play hoop over there. And what I didn't have at that point was the tenacity.
Right.
Just to like, this person's not as good as me, but they're gonna like pick me up full court and put their forehead in my chest and guard me like their life depends on it, because they know if they don't go pro, or they feel like if they don't go pro or get
no options,
like they're out of options. Right. Like I never had the understanding of how powerful it was to feel like this is the only plan. And I learned it in sports, but I also kind of felt it through life. Was like, you can tell when somebody's like, I don't do plan B. Not to say that's a great strategy, but you can tell the effort they're putting into their plan A.
Yeah.
If they've said that to themselves, like, this is it, or I'm gonna starve.
Yeah.
Like, I bet his company's gonna do all right.
Pat Beverly.
Yeah, Pat Bev. Gosh, it's funny you said that, because as I was telling stories, like that's a perfect example, right? Like, I can't name one starting point guard that Pat Beverly is more skilled than.
Yeah.
And I can't name one point guard that like you'd rather see in a dark alley.
Exactly. So was there a camp? Did you ever do any like the AAU camps, or because obviously that's a lot bigger now? But was there a moment at a camp that you played against somebody else, or was there a time during high school ball that you like really thought you could make it? Or you got that
that's
affirmation?
What I should have finished the story with was I'm JV. I had to play freshman and JV. Most people don't know that about me when I went to St. Joe's. So like I was not a natural born star. So junior high, I was like getting pretty good. Then I had this moment of like, oh, I'm not the best. And then I had to climb back up to getting pretty good again. And so there was a time, so I started playing AAU. I played for the Oakland Rebels out of Bushrod Rec, 59th and Telegraph in North Oakland. And we had a squad. We were really, really good. And we were trying to go up against really good teams. So we started traveling, we played summer ball, all of that. Meanwhile, at the school, I'm kind of getting disrespected on like a lower level team playing, freshman than JV. And so it was weird because in these summer tournaments, I'll be going against like top 10, top 20 players in the country.
Yeah.
And I had that like Oakland mentality. I'm playing, with the Rebels and blah, blah, blah. We're not scared of anybody. And I'm going at people and I'm playing great.
Yeah.
And then I'm coming to the school and having the school kind of be like, I'll pay your dues, like you're not gonna play
Yeah.
anymore, right?
Yeah.
So I just remember there was like a time period early in high school where like I hadn't played a single varsity game, but I
Mm-hmm.
had been playing at such a high level in the summer ball
With the
that I'm
Rebels, yeah.
getting like recruitment letters from like
Wow.
division colleges, and I've
Yeah.
never played a game. And that's when I kind of was like, I think if I take this serious, I'm gonna go pretty far because
Yeah.
like I just like my confidence was starting to grow.
Yeah.
And then by the time it was like junior and senior year, I was just like also had a chip on my shoulder from not having been on the team.
Right.
And then like I'm going at people, and I learned to go at people with this mentality of like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't care who you are, where you're from. And those all culminated at the same time. So then when I started going to like Super 100 camps and all this stuff, I brought all that energy with me and was pretty tenacious.
Why is it that, I mean, my sisters didn't end up playing a game of high school soccer. They did the club route,
Yeah.
and they both got one D1 soccer scholarship. The other one's going to be walking on D3 school, and
Right.
they didn't play a single game of high school soccer. Like, do you think um, do you think like it's antiquated now to play high school sport? I mean, because then you have to deal with the coaches and you have to deal with like the politics. Like some parents like to coach more or whatever, and so I mean, coaches have such a huge impact on the outcome of what this kid could potentially be. And
Yeah.
it just seems like there's so many politics with high school sports all the
Yeah.
time.
Well, that was my reaction to it. Was I just really didn't like the fact that like a lot of school coaches felt like you needed them more than they needed you. And it was pretty apparent like the coaches out there that just care about the kids versus the coaches that like, I built a good program
Mm-hmm.
and I care about the program,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then so to tackle the earlier, it's definitely a shift in the era, like because it used to be kind of like two mentalities. Like I'm trying to be as successful as I can in the game of basketball, like I'm hoping to go pro.
Mm-hmm.
And then like I'm trying to use the game of basketball to get an education for free and start a great career.
Mm-hmm.
And both are like very respectable ways to look at the purpose of sports for students.
Right.
That line starts to get blurred because like now it's like, well, I want to end up in the league and I might be good enough to end up in the league, but I have to go to school,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, and then now with the NIL, with the name, image, and likeness stuff, even more so of like, now it is a profession and I'm getting an education, I can be paid in both.
Yeah.
So to say that's like, they definitely, one way is antiquated because when I was there, you couldn't get paid to play, in school. And then also like you needed school to get to the league. And that's both of those are untrue or less true now. So to answer that, I would say it's really tricky, but if you have the ability to be paid for your skill at something,
Yeah.
only in sports is it questioned or controlled by other people.
Right.
For example, if I make amazing lemonade, I can be 9 years old. It doesn't, and put a shoebox in front of my house.
Yeah.
And write on the shoebox lemonade.
Right.
$2. And no one's gonna be like, that kid hasn't graduated. Like this kid didn't put his time in at school.
Right.
You gotta be 19 to sell lemonade. Like no one would ever do it. If I start an app at 13, I'm on the cover of Forbes as like the most brilliant youngster ever. Amazing.
Right.
And then if I dunk a basketball at 14, you tell me like, and I can beat a 25-year-old man one-on-one in hoop.
Yeah.
And that skill set pays other people millions of dollars on television because they love to watch it. Only for sport are we like, wait 11 years and then we'll let you have your money. And that's kind of crazy. And that's where I think people start to say, well, why is that? Like, oh, is it because most of the people in that position come from this place and it's not liked?
Yeah.
Or is it from a good place of like, well, of course, a 14-year-old shouldn't have $20 million.
Right.
I'm not sure, but I think that's.
But I mean, but even to that point, I mean, there's other like these little TikTok kids are making millions of dollars, and YouTube kids are making, YouTubers are making millions of dollars as gamers on whatchamacallit, Reddit, or what's the streaming site? Twitch, making tons of money.
You just showed that I'm not a gamer. Like,
I'm versatile.
World, I feel you. Yeah,
I can cross over a lot of different worlds. Yeah. So I
but,
mean,
the point being, just like, I think, why is it that we chose this one lane to tell people when they can get paid for a payable skill set that they have, right? Like, I don't understand why that lane is treated differently than any other industry in the world.
My biggest grift with the argument of, well, they're getting a free education is not really. I also had a full ride scholarship for academics, and I didn't earn the university a dime, right? But you have these guys that are there, darn near year round, football players, basketball players, volleyball, tennis, all these people, giving their blood, sweat, and tears for 4, sometimes 5 years, 6, even if they get the, medical red shirts, and they're bringing the universities millions of dollars in revenue, mostly just basketball and football, but, the other sports, help out a little bit. And they can't even get free food from people. Like I can't technically buy food from my friends, or they can't receive gifts from anybody outside of their family. Like the whole Reggie Bush thing is ridiculous, right? Matt Leinart was, his dad bought him a house down because he had money, and his own teammates couldn't even stay in the house with him. That would have been it's crazy. And
they told him too, like, you guys cannot work, right? So not only are you going to come down here, you're going to practice every single day for at least a few hours, you're going to earn the school millions, but like, we're going to tell you how much that's worth, right? In a lot of places, like a Scally check in Santa Barbara, California, a lot different than a Scally check in El Paso, Texas.
Right.
And so, like, you're saying like, oh no, Al can make this money work in one of the most expensive counties in the world, right? Versus like, you can't. And then on top of that, if I say, you know what, that's fair, I'll take my check and I'll like budget it and do well. If I need more, I'll go work. You're like, no, you can't work. Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And the last part about that was it's a lot of those guys and girls don't get to choose their own classes also. Not all the time. Like, there's some of the ones that are really determined. You hear about the John Urschels, the guy got a PhD in math and everything. And but rarely though, these guys get the really full opportunity to explore their academic journey. So it's not even like you can really, like, you're lying to yourself if you're really saying they're getting a great free education.
But to play devil's advocate, I will say, graduating from a UC or a top tier institution with zero debt, like,
I know.
I was very appreciative.
Yeah, I made money in college. I was, because
I know people now, brilliant people, graduated from an amazing school, got their master's from an amazing school,
right?
Their master's. What's the Kanye skit? They did all the things America said you should do, and then you're destined for success. And I graduated school, math,
showing your age right there,
years ago, right? And those people have graduated my year, and they're still like grossly in debt just off the school. We're not talking about like, did you mess around and buy a car?
Yeah.
Did you mess around and want to have new clothes every other year? Like, just standard things that living should be a part of your life. Grossly in debt. So like, if I add that onto it, it's like, okay, that is a big jump to get like a high level degree and like walk away not owing a single drop of money, and especially no interest on that money. Right. That was huge. I do want to stress that, but it probably wasn't enough compared to like what I potentially earned, or especially someone at a bigger university than me, what they're earning for the school. So.
And you alluded, you went to UCSB. How'd you end up landing at UCSB?
That's a good question. You know what's crazy? Alameda and Oakland are like 5-hour drive, let's say, if you're not speeding north of Santa Barbara. I never heard of Santa Barbara in my entire life.
Bruh, I tell people that all the time. Like, I drove right past it all the time. I never even knew it was a real place.
Like, never even heard somebody in passing in Oakland go,
hey, bruh.
Like, I've never, it's just, they kept that all the way secret from us.
That was Narnia.
They hid that. So I'm like, what closet did you have to go through? And so I said that like two part is just to like kind of explain my reaction upon landing here. Like, so, you know, they were recruiting me and they were recruiting a buddy of mine. And so that's what put them on the map was like, oh, y'all recruiting both of us. And that's my homie. So like, maybe I'll pay some attention to the school. And I'm like, where is that? And all I heard was, it's on a beach. It's a good answer. Yeah, that's a good answer. And then to be dropped off here, I'm just trying to explain like how different this town looks to the eye and it feels than after like 18 years of the Bay Area, East Bay, right?
Yeah.
You get dropped off and it's like it was sunny even late in the year, palm trees everywhere, no traffic, no trash on the ground. I flew in over the coast. I think they purposely made the captain go over the coast, circle the school on the beach, then land, and get out, get picked up in a golf cart, mob through. Like the reaction, I think, is what landed me there. Of just like places like this exist. This is crazy, you know?
Yeah.
And seeing it for the first time, and it still has that effect on me. Santa Barbara is just a beautiful place.
Yeah.
And, you know, then afterwards, I was like, oh, it's a UC. Oh, it's academic, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And the big shift, I would say, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, if we look up later that this was some kind of violation, please do. I met, so one of the most famous athletes to graduate from UCSB is a gentleman named Brian Shaw.
Yep.
And Brian Shaw, long career in the NBA, is the NBA coach. But he and I went to the same church in Oakland.
Okay.
So he was
100% a violation. 100% a violation. 100%.
You probably wouldn't want me to tell her that. Anyway, one way or another, we got to meet and got to speak. And, you know, there's not a lot of heroes for Oakland kids, like, and just like heroes from our area. So the fact that this dude took the time to speak to me about it, about going here, and also he kind of reminded me, like, you know, if you're a really good player, hard worker, it doesn't really matter where you're at. It doesn't really, you know, I still take this to me to this day in business. So I think about it from a business perspective. It doesn't really matter your company or your role or your level. If you have the skill, if you have the work ethic, if you have the desire, the ambition, if you're a good person and people like working with you, if you're coachable, like success will find you, the league will find you, will find you, blah, blah, blah. And that was kind of the finishing touch. That reaction to Santa Barbara itself, and then that message from somebody I idolized was like, cool, I'm here. And that's it.
Well, I say this to this day, the best organization I've ever worked for was the Penn State football team. It was every person needed to carry.
Wait, a lot of people aren't saying that right now.
So, all right. So
I couldn't help it.
No, you know what's crazy about my life is I'll try and I'll try. I have a passion. I have a goal, and I'll try for something, and I don't get that opportunity. But then me not getting that opportunity always makes sense later on. And what I mean by that is when I got to campus freshman year, 2009, you know, I remember me and my friend Marco going to the Penn State we didn't know the right operations. We went straight to the football building and asked for Joe Paterno and asked if we can get a job. You know, we didn't know.
Yo, Joe here?
Yeah. Hey, is Joe available? Yeah, is Joe available? Yeah. Who's asking? So I tried every year for the first 2.5, so my freshman year, sophomore year, and didn't get the opportunity. And then that's when the scandal broke, and they cleared house, and they needed people.
Right. Wow.
And one of my mentors was transitioning off the team, and he knew one of the coaches that was going to be hired, and he put me in contact. So my senior year, so I worked for Bill O'Brien. And I worked for Ted Roof, defensive coordinator. And I worked for Rich Yonner, who was the defensive special assistant. But if I had gotten that job the first 2 years, I would have been part of the team that got cleared out, would have been allegations. And it's just like the universe has always looked out for me, and it just sucks because you have to push through those negative opportunities. So with that being said, everybody had to carry their weight. I was the backup assistant to the water boy. You know, like I was nobody.
You were behind Adam Sandler. You were the backup water boy. Yeah. No,
right. Oh yeah, yes.
No.
Like I was getting the water for the water boy. Exactly. But everybody's role was so important. Even my little minuscule role. Everybody's, and you could see on Sunday if you didn't do your part, my little laminating the football playbooks. You know, if I didn't do my shit right,
Yeah.
it was a glaring issue on
Yeah.
Saturday. And that was my favorite part, is like it would all come together on a Saturday and everyone worked their ass off. What was, I also have to say, what was your favorite part about playing a part of the UCSB basketball team? That was a long-winded
Great.
question.
Gosh, great intro. You brought it all the way back. Ladies and gentlemen.
Because you weren't making money. It wasn't a
What a
job for you at
host.
the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dang, that's a great question, man. I think I loved, wow, so many things about it, man. I thrive on connection. I thrive on challenge. I thrive on cultivation. One of the quotes I always live by is to cultivate thyself daily. I love just like the road less traveled. And I feel like playing collegiate basketball is all those things, just like a brotherhood, to be on a team that intimate, that's like 6 a.m. weights, 5-hour bus rides, airport flights, rooming together on the road, training sessions together, big wins together, huge losses together, injuries, consoling each other through injuries. Like that, there's just a level of intimacy that I think you can't really reciprocate.
Yeah, replicate. Reciprocate works too.
Wow. It's been a long day. You can't really replicate just in other spaces. Like you can't just like fake that. You can't just like throw a workshop for your company and create that. It's just so organic. And so I loved all of that. Like I just felt like I was living life at its fullest, like on campus. I wasn't there like just reading books and taking tests. I wasn't there just like partying. I was there like with just this like super heightened mission, so heightened that I'm going to bed at 8:30 as a 21-year-old kid. Who does that? So I could get up for 5 a.m. weights and be there like the hour before, staying late so that the custodian will leave. And then I could go in the gym afterwards with nobody knowing and work out by myself and get better than my peers. Like I just loved trying to do more than everybody and trying to do more than what was expected. That was the biggest thing that I loved about basketball.
Yeah.
And then on that stage in Santa Barbara, there's also the connection point of like, you naturally are going to be in front of people. You have to give this speech. You're in the paper, fans show up to the games. Like you naturally have to connect at a higher level. You couldn't just hide in your shell. And especially when I was younger, maybe not so much today, but that synced with my personality perfectly. Like I could be in any room. Like I kind of needed that.
Right.
I was just like an engaging human being. So it was perfect. It fueled all those things that I needed to feel happy in my life.
And then your junior and senior years come up. This is around time where most people need to make the decision. Are they going to continue on, try to go get drafted, or I don't think the G League was around back then.
It wasn't. It didn't look like this. It was around. It was like almost like trying out for a pro team. What's the movie with the dudes that the replacements or something? The football players.
Yeah, replacements.
Yeah, it was like that. It was like people they would be bagging groceries, come try out for the Lakers G League team. Zero.
So at this time, are you thinking you're gonna get one of these really rare random not random, but one of these rare opportunities to get drafted, like you and every other college student at this time, and then European kids, like, or where are you at right now?
Yeah, great question. No, and we probably didn't properly tell the basketball story.
Sorry, I did a bad job as a host.
So I'll just catch everybody up in 2 seconds. Like, went to high school, wasn't known. Junior, senior year, blew up. Won state championship, Santa Barbara. So it wasn't like I was like, I know I'm good enough to be a pro, even up into being in school. And then first couple of years at Santa Barbara, flashes of greatness, but like still definitely hadn't done enough to be like on a national stage. And so this time period was perfect because I had a self gut check. Like you might as well stop playing if you're not good, because you're giving a lot of time and attention to this. If you're not going to go pro, you might as well quit and let's go really focused on our academics. Or you better I was gonna say man up, and then I was like, bro, they probably cancel people.
I know, yeah, you can't say that anymore.
forgive me, everyone. We use a term called manning up,
Yeah,
like
it's an
be
Oakland thing.
tougher.
It's an
I know
it's an
that's
Oakland thing.
stupid.
Yeah,
We shouldn't say it. It doesn't matter.
yeah.
So I apologize, but at this point, I had a talk with myself internally
Mm,
of like, you're just not doing enough. And
mm-hmm,
I think that was really the start of like the snap of like,
mm,
I wonder how hard I can train before like I tear something super vital to my body, you know, like literally like I'm just gonna like be Kung Fu Panda punching a tree, like the tiger in there that was just punching a tree for 20 years or whatever the heck. And I went nuts. I would do that summer, I went home to Oakland. I was running Strawberry Canyon behind Cal, super
yep.
steep slopes. I was training with a gentleman named Raym Young, who was like known for not having any mess around. And we're way over 45. I don't know, but he would do stuff like throw his truck in neutral and be like, "Yo, push it to the
Yeah.
end, like 20 blocks away." In the middle of the street, getting honked at in Berkeley, like pushing a truck down the street, then go train, go to practice, dropping sandbags in our laps. We working out 2 hours. He'll do stuff like walk in the gym, like shoot until it's dark out. It's like 1 in the afternoon.
Mm.
Like, is he serious? And leave us in there and like come back 4 hours later and like we weren't shooting. It was a problem, you know, like we just lost it. And then I would leave that workout and everybody would be dead.
Mm-hmm.
One kid had asthma. He's like, we're checking him into the hospital. Like everyone's dead. And I
Yeah.
would go in the car, change clothes, go over to O'Dowd in East Oakland, train with Lou Ritchie for
Yeah.
another 2 hours. Because I was like, if I'm just doing the same thing that everybody working out with Raym is doing, how can I be better than them? We're all doing the same thing. So
Right.
when they all ducked off, I would limp into
Right.
O'Dowd, sore and hurting, and train for another 2. And then I played in the summer pro-am and it showed, like the work just immediately showed.
Yeah.
And so in the San Francisco Pro-Am is where professional players can play with amateur players.
Right.
And so you got to test yourself as a student athlete against people that were making money to play, Warriors players, NBA players, overseas players. And I went out there and was holding court.
Oh, he was balling.
Game, like out of control. Not only just balling, but like with ease.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I found out later, like when a pro player in the summertime is playing, he's probably not giving.
He's not playing defense, and
but my confidence didn't need to know that at the time. I led the team in scoring. Our team won the championship. I'm playing against, millionaires, and I'm dropping 25, 30 points in games. So I come back to school and I'm just a different human.
Yeah.
And it showed. I led the league in scoring my junior year. I was like top 10 in the nation, if I remember correctly, in scoring.
Damn.
Division I.
Yeah.
Mid-major, All-American honors, blah, 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 blah. And then I knew I was good. And if somebody would have been talking to me about the business side of life, I probably would have left school and put my name into the draft after that season.
Yeah.
Then it came back, played my senior season. So I think my senior year, we won a conference title, regular conference title, not junior. And then I broke the school's all-time scoring record, which gave me the notoriety to be like, okay, I know I'm going to go play pro.
Yeah.
Now it's just, will it be in the league or overseas? And it ended up being the latter.
See, I'm going to say a couple of things. This is exactly the reason why I like to record these conversations and hopefully other people will listen, because I don't know if you've recognized, but you've had several points at this point you've shared in your life where you thought you were at all your capacity or your plateau, and you push past that and you go Super Saiyan, and then you're at another level, and I mean, that is, I think everybody is capable of that, but not everybody is willing to jump, through that what it's going to take to do the next thing. And I think with that attitude, you can damn near accomplish anything.
It's so true. You said it so well. Like, even one of my frustrations now is like, I work in sales. A lot of people think of sales as like a bad word, or they're a little scared of it. And I love sales because I think it's one of the only industries, careers, et cetera, where like literally, if you work hard this week, you can change your income.
Yes.
Like there's very few roles in business where it's like, hey, next week I want to make $1,000 more, Mr. CEO. Is that cool? And they're like, no. But like in sales, it's like, hey, I generated, 100,000 more for the company. Oh yeah, here's your commission check, right?
That's why I miss being in. That's the only part I miss about being in sales, is you can literally, like, that's the only role you can have, that and staffing, where you can directly impact your income.
And I think that's so similar to sports, right? Is like literally you can have direct control over your livelihood through your effort and individual, work ethic and success.
Yeah.
But what I try to tell my team is like, it's a lot of these things that you're afraid of, calling someone cold or like coming in early, staying late, or like putting forth this amount of effort. Every time in my life where I've been in a situation like I'm just going to double down on this effort, it almost immediately rewarded me. And when you say that to someone, when you tell people like, yo, I was working with Ox, I had an East Coast territory and I lived in California. So I came in at 5 and finished my workday at 2 when they left. But then I wasn't at my numbers. So then I called against the time zones and I called Central for the next hour. Then I called Pacific time for the next hour. And then I called Hawaii because they're behind us. And I stole an extra half day in that same time period. Like, yeah, I'm not as smart as this person. I don't know as many, adult SAT vocab words as that person.
Right.
Like, I haven't worked in this industry as long, but I'm working a day and a half to every day.
Right.
And then the result was like I led the department in sales and got to get promoted way earlier than I should have.
Yeah.
So, and that gave me energy. That was the point I was trying to get to. Like, it sounds exhausting to tell people I was in the office 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
But weirdly, when you come into work and it's like, oh, I'm leading again for like this 12th consecutive month. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm about to keep doing this. I don't like, I'm actually hyped now. I'm looking forward to doing this again tomorrow.
It's astonishing to me how many lazy people there are. And, like, it's crazy, bro. I think that's if at least America, I'll say America. You can't say that other countries, but like, it's crazy, like how many people are just so lackadaisical or just want things handed to them, or if something's too difficult, they'll try to find someone else to, as opposed to just figuring it out for themselves. And that's one thing I'm also very, very, very thankful for the way I was raised. It sucks at the time, but look, I'm half Ethiopian. If you want to punish an Ethiopian, you give us the day off. Like, that's like we are the Mexicans of Africa, bro. That probably would get us canceled.
Are we canceled yet? Have y'all deleted us and like flamed us in the comments yet? Because that one might have just done it.
And then the way my dad raised me, man, it was always like, don't ever half-ass anything. Never be satisfied. I come home with A's, and he'd be like, why don't you get an A+? I'm like, damn, pops. I come home with a B+ on this really difficult test, and he's like, all right, well, I guess you're eating outside today, But there's this quote by Bruce Lee. He said, if you always put limits on everything you do, physical or anything else, it will spread into your work and into your life. There are no limits. There are only plateaus, and you must not stay there. You must go beyond them. And that's one thing I had written down. And, I try to remind myself of, and, you are a living embodiment of that. And so I'll just shout out. And then one thing our coaches tell us when we're younger, and I never understood until it was too late, obviously, is you don't get better at practice, you get better outside. And I was like, why am I here?
Why is we here?
Why?
Yeah, no, that Iverson practice thing popped into my own mind, and it's so true. Man, I hope we can like do another hour here, and you can just like save it for a part 2 or something. There's so many things like I want to discuss.
We haven't even got to your overseas basketball life. We haven't even got to your work. Should we just cut it now and just do a part 2 later on?
I mean, we could do that, but before we do, I guess I want to say this is like, this is one story I never used to tell. I think I was a little ashamed of it. It's kind of scary, and then like I started telling more, and the more I told it, the more my journey and my outlook on life made sense. So I'll give the short version of it. When I was really, really young, maybe 5 years old, I fell into a pool and almost drowned. And I remember it like yesterday. Remember being underwater. Remember like having a clear conscious thought of like, I'm gonna die. And I think, and sometimes I tell the story, it comes off like super dark, and people are like, "Whoa, bro, settle down," right? But like when I follow up and just say like, it's more than just a saying, to be like, yo, I'm really, really aware that life is short and like very precious. And I think that maybe helps me to a level that others don't. Like, if you just really haven't acknowledged that like your time here is short, and then your time in whatever existence after this is like indefinite, right? Like, I think like, how can you ever be lazy? Like, how can you ever waste the day? How can you ever waste a moment or an opportunity to jump on a plane to Poland, or a chance to speak to that amazing, beautiful girl? Or like,
Yeah.
how can you miss any of that when like you've got so much time to not be doing stuff? Like, right? And I think for me, it's like I've never been good at taking naps. I never like slept well after that. Like I just always am like, if I'm awake, I need to be doing something. It could be reading, learning, studying language. It could be working out,
Yeah.
connecting with people. But like I'm wasting time if
Yeah.
I'm complaining, if I'm coming late, if I'm pouting, if I'm being stank.
Yeah.
That's the proper pronunciation.
Stank.
Stank.
Stank. There's a
Like
capital
if I'm
K at
just
the
like
end.
an unbearable person in the room, if
Yeah.
I'm at the family reunion and every time I'm there, it's a terrible experience for everyone there. Like, why
Yeah.
are you wasting time not being your best self, not touching people and helping people? Like, it's such a waste.
Such
It's
a waste.
such a waste, man. And
The
I can't
the
waste a
perspective,
second.
the perspective thing is so important. You know, I again, I think that's why we connected really well, is because, you know, I also had a near death experience in a pool. I also had a friend that passed away, and growing up in murder capital, Oakland, California, like you see it every day, but until it happens to you, you know, you don't get that extra umph. And I had a friend that died, and the last thing I ever said to this kid was, get the fuck out of my house. And um, all he wanted me to do was step out my comfort zone. That's all he wanted me to do, was just be a little bit more confident with myself and go talk to a girl. That's all he wanted me to do. And the last thing I told him was, get the fuck out of my house. And, you know, he died a year later. And it's like, damn, like I never want to hold a grudge ever again in my life. And number two, like you know, this kid he was recovering drug and alcohol. He was completely sober, right? So he wasn't that kid that you know, you had to drink to be cool. Like he was just himself, and he was comfortable with himself, and that's all he wanted me to be. And man, that had such a lasting effect on my life. He had such a huge impact. Um, yeah, and it's like every day I just want to be the best version of myself, because you don't know when it's your time to go. And I want to make sure that, like, at the end of my days, like I left and I lived with no regrets.
There it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't even follow that up with anything. I've never heard it put, any better than that. And
Well, let me finish off with a cheesy question then, and
yeah,
then we definitely
I mean, I can keep going, but I'm just saying
we're definitely gonna
was
have
the
to
point.
do.
Thank you for sharing that.
We're definitely gonna have to do a part two, and that will be in
That's a
person.
must.
I
Yeah.
promise.
Okay.
All right. Up until this point, we were talking about to your senior years of college.
Yeah.
I'm a big proponent on learning the most from losses I've had in my life. What's a really big loss that ended up turning into a really huge positive for you?
Dang, that's a great question, bro. That might be the best question
I mean, this is
I've ever been asked.
This is episode almost 80 now. You know, I've done this a couple times.
Ooh, the boy's good, y'all. The boy is good. Like, subscribe. Dang, what a great question. Like the first answer that popped up hadn't happened yet in my life. So I'll save it for part two.
Okay.
So up until that point, it almost sounds like irrelevant and insignificant now.
Don't all of our issues, you look at 10 years ago?
And it's so true.
All right, then do the first one that popped up your mind then.
Okay, okay. So this is a different type of loss. This was also the loss of a loved one. Many parts of the story, but my grandmother passed. My grandmother was probably like my favorite individual in my family. And I was in Germany. I was just starting my pro career, it's third season, and my grandmother passed away. And I was, gone. I was on the other side of the globe. I wasn't seeing a lot of her at that time. I was playing ball. And it did a lot of things for me. The two biggest, number one, was from that moment on, for 8 more years, for every single game that I played as a pro, which was a lot of games, I would, give a kiss and a wave to my grandmother above me at the start of a game. And that was probably the point where I finally started to like calm down, give myself grace, just acknowledge that like I'm doing something so unique and amazing. And just being here right now is crazy. And like play the game for fun, which I hadn't done in probably the previous 6 years, because I was playing for money and I was playing for accomplishment and for notoriety and fame.
Right.
And so, you know, when she passed, it was like such a huge loss, such a loss for our family and me as a person. And then it became like my North Star, literally, like before the game, kids looking up to her, like almost like smiling and laughing, like, I miss you. And then come onto the court like light, like juice, like,
wow. Yeah.
You know, like this. And I was tearing it out. I had an all-star season that year.
It was like six men.
Yeah, right. And she on the court beating up Wayne's brother shots. Yeah, like yeah. And you know, man, like that stuck with me the rest of my career. She was with me every game. And I was in a penthouse apartment that year. Like I turned a corner, I became a real pro and got to really excel. Yeah. And the other thing it did, which at the time was not great, but you know, the other thing that I was in a relationship, and that was the first time, like when I found out that my grandmother passed, I've kind of been like interacting with this person, this woman, and like, you know, not sure if it was going to work out. And then I got like really serious because I was like in a super deep place. Told her I loved it for the first time. The relationship didn't work out at that point in time. It didn't, and I went a long time, you know, dating a lot of unsavory characters. But then, oh, is this one on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I was gonna put it, not anymore.
Anyway, you know, me and that young lady came back together later in life, and came together to have my daughter, a child who is no doubt like just the joy of my life now. And already taller than me too. You know, if you want to go, this is a stretch, but if you want to go full circle, like losing my grandmother led me to be serious for the first time about family. Yeah. Which years later, allowed me to continue the line and have a child and experience that. And I mean, for a 33-year single individual roaming the world, like there's probably people that knew me at that time and like, this is not the same Al. Like, there's no question that the only thing that truly matters to me in life now is like my daughter smiles. So, so that was crazy, right? What a terrible loss, which then probably carried me through a third of my life. A lot of purpose. So.
That's amazing, man. Well, honestly, dude, I appreciate you for taking the time. I know you are a very busy person. Say what's up to the baby and wifey for me, please.
I definitely will. Thank you, bro, for having me. You know, if anybody asks, we filmed this late at night. If anybody anybody on the board is looking at this, this is after work.
All right, bro. I appreciate you, man.
Bro, I appreciate you. Love you. Thank you.